Jake Morrison sat in the council chamber and tried not to show his frustration. The massive room curved around him in a perfect circle, with seats rising in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. Representatives from 47 different species filled those seats, their forms ranging from the insect-like Vrelians to the floating gas beings of the ethereal collective. Above them all, holographic displays showed voting tallies and proposal texts in a dozen different languages. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 12 years now. 12 long years of speeches, negotiations, and diplomatic dinners where he smiled and pretended not to notice the condescension in every interaction. Today was worse than usual. Resolution 447 passes with 83% approval, Council Director Jothik announced, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The Vrelian looked down at the human delegation from his elevated platform, his compound eyes reflecting no emotion that Jake could read. The matter is settled. Amy Sullivan, Jake's deputy, leaned close and whispered, "That's the 5th resolution this year that targets us specifically. They're not even trying to hide it anymore." Jake nodded slightly. She was right. Resolution 447 restricted emerging species from accessing certain trade routes and advanced technologies. The language was careful and diplomatic, but everyone in the chamber knew exactly which species it meant. Humanity had only joined the Council 80 years ago. In galactic terms, that made them newcomers, children playing at the adults' table. Never mind that human ships patrolled most of those trade routes. Never mind that human engineers maintained the very station they all sat in. Never mind that human doctors had stopped 3 plagues in the last decade alone. None of that seemed to matter. "Ambassador Morrison," Jothik said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into flat, mechanical words. "Does Earth have any final comments before we adjourn?" Jake stood slowly. He was tall by human standards, which made him average in this assembly. Some of the other species towered over the chamber. Others were so small they needed mechanical platforms to be seen. After 12 years, he barely noticed the variety anymore. "Council Director, fellow ambassadors," he began, keeping his voice even and professional. "I must once again register Earth's strong objection to this resolution. Humanity has proven itself a responsible member of this council. Our contributions to galactic security, medical aid, and infrastructure maintenance are substantial and well documented. This resolution solves no actual problem. It merely creates new barriers based on arbitrary age restrictions." Several ambassadors shifted in their seats. A few looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored. They had heard versions of this speech before. Jothik waved a foreclaw dismissively. "Your objection is noted for the record as always. However, the Council has voted. The elder species have wisdom that comes from millennia of experience. Humanity's contributions have been adequate but hardly irreplaceable. Perhaps in another few centuries, Earth will have earned the trust necessary for full participation in Council affairs." Adequate. The word hung in the air like an insult. Jake felt Amy tense beside him, but he kept his face neutral. Getting angry would only prove their point that humans were too emotional, too volatile, too young. "Thank you, Council Director," Jake said, sitting back down. There was nothing else to say. He had made Earth's position clear, it had been ignored, and now it was over. Like always, the session ended shortly after. Jake and Amy gathered their materials and headed toward the transport platform that would take them back to the human embassy section of Apex Prime Station. Other ambassadors filed past them, talking amongst themselves in various languages. None stopped to speak with the humans. None ever did unless they needed something. "I hate this," Amy muttered once they were alone in the transport pod. "I really genuinely hate this." "I know," Jake said tiredly. He looked out at the vast station sliding past the transparent walls of the pod. Apex Prime was a marvel of engineering, a city-sized station that served as the neutral ground for the Galactic Council. Millions lived and worked here, representing every species in the Council. Humans had built most of the docking facilities. They maintained the life support systems. They ran the emergency services. And they got thanked by being called adequate. "How much longer are we going to put up with this?" Amy asked. Jake didn't answer right away. He had been asking himself the same question for years now. "That's above my pay grade. I just report what happens here. The President and Congress decide what to do about it." His personal communicator buzzed. Jake glanced at it and felt his stomach sink. It was a priority message from Earth, encrypted and marked urgent. He showed it to Amy. Looks like they're deciding right now, she said quietly. On Earth, President Lisa Brennan sat at the head of a long table in the White House Situation Room. Around her sat the most powerful people in human government, her cabinet, military leaders, intelligence directors, and key members of Congress. The mood in the room was grim. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Lisa said, looking at the report displayed on her tablet. In the past 10 years, humanity has been systematically excluded from council committees. Our proposals have been rejected at a rate of 91%, and resolutions specifically limiting our activities have increased by 400%. That's correct. Madam President, confirmed Secretary of State Karen Phillips. She was a veteran diplomat who had served 3 presidents before Lisa. Her silver hair and calm demeanor usually projected confidence, but today she looked worried. The pattern is undeniable. The council is marginalizing us, and why? Asked Vice President Greg Hamilton. What did we do wrong? Secretary of Defense Rick Coleman leaned forward. He was a former Marine general, and his blunt manner sometimes caused problems in delicate political situations. Today, though, Lisa appreciated his directness. Nothing, sir. That's the problem. We did everything right. Too right, maybe. He tapped his own tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the table, showing statistics and graphs. Humanity provides 34% of the Council's military defense. We operate 61% of the early warning systems. We maintain the majority of trade route security. Our medical corps has saved countless lives across dozens of worlds. We've never started a conflict, never broken a treaty, never failed to respond when called. Then why do they treat us like this? Greg asked. Because we scare them, said Director of National Intelligence Kate Morrison, who happened to be Jake's older sister. Humanity has been in space for less than 2 centuries. Most council species took thousands of years to achieve what we've done in decades. We explore faster, adapt quicker, and work harder than they do. They look at us and see something unpredictable and dangerous. Lisa drummed her fingers on the table. She had been president for 3 years now, and she had hoped to improve Earth's relationship with the council. Instead, things had only gotten worse. Options? We could push back harder, Karen suggested. Make our objections more forceful. Use economic pressure. They need our trade more than they admit. That would confirm every negative stereotype they have about us, Rick countered. Aggressive humans throwing their weight around. It would make things worse. We could reduce our commitments gradually, offered Admiral Tracy Bennett, commander of Earth's home fleet. Stop volunteering for every crisis. Let them handle some of their own problems. They might appreciate us more if they had to do without us for a while. Lisa looked around the table. What about withdrawal? The room went silent. Everyone stared at her. Withdrawal? Karen repeated. You mean leave the council entirely? Is that even possible? Asked Greg. Kate pulled up another document. Article 12 of the Council Charter allows any member species to withdraw with 6 months' notice, provided all treaty obligations are fulfilled and jointly held assets are transferred to Council control. It's never been used, but yes, it's possible. Lisa studied the faces around the table. She saw worry, uncertainty, and in a few cases, barely concealed hope. I want honest opinions. If we left the council, what would happen? Rick spoke first. Militarily, we'd be fine. Better than fine, actually. We could focus our fleet on protecting human interests instead of patrolling half the galaxy for species that don't even thank us. Our security would improve. Economically, Karen said slowly, there would be disruption in the short term, but most of our major trade is with other human colonies or independent species outside the council anyway. We could survive. Politically, it would be seen as a defeat, Kate warned. Earth giving up its seat at the galactic table. Our enemies would celebrate. What enemies? Rick asked sharply. Name one species that actually considers us friends right now. We don't have allies in the council, Kate. We have users. They use our ships, our technology, our people, and they give us nothing but contempt in return. Lisa held up a hand before the argument could escalate. What about the moral aspect? We help a lot of people out there. Medical aid, disaster response, rescue operations. If we leave, people will suffer. Admiral Tracy nodded. Yes, Madam President, they will. But is it our responsibility to protect people who don't want our protection? To help those who see our help as an insult? President Lisa Brennan did not hold a press conference. She did not give a dramatic speech. She did not send angry messages to the Galactic Council. Instead, she signed a single document in the privacy of the Oval Office. and with that signature, set in motion something that would change the galaxy forever. Protocol Exodus, the document was called. It was 200 pages of careful planning, legal analysis, and logistical details. It outlined exactly how humanity would withdraw from the Galactic Council in a way that was completely legal, utterly professional, and left no room for accusations of betrayal or sabotage. The key word was quiet. Everything had to be done quietly. Admiral Tracy Bennett received her orders at 3 a.m, ship time. She was aboard the EDS Valiant, Earth's flagship, currently stationed in the Outer Rim territories. The message was encrypted 3 times and marked with presidential authority. It took her 10 minutes to decode it, and another 10 to read it twice, making sure she understood. Then she called her senior officers to her ready room. Captain Danny Hayes was the first to arrive. He commanded a destroyer squadron that patrolled the Kepler threshold, one of the most dangerous regions of Council space. Pirates and raiders loved the asteroid fields there. Human ships had kept them under control for decades. "Admiral," Danny said, saluting. "Your message said this was urgent." "Sit down, Danny," Tracy said, waiting for the others to arrive. Captain Lisa Wade came next, then Commander Paul Griffin, then half a dozen other senior officers. When they were all assembled, Tracy locked the door and activated the room's security field. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level," she began. "If any of this leaks before we're ready, it could trigger a crisis. Is that understood?" They all nodded, looking concerned. Tracy took a breath. "We're leaving, all of us. Every human ship, every human soldier, every human presence in Council space. We're going home." The silence that followed was absolute. Finally, Danny spoke. "All of us? The entire fleet?" "Every ship," Tracy confirmed. "It's called Protocol Exodus. We have 6 months to complete a total withdrawal from Council space. Everything has to be done systematically, professionally, and quietly. We fulfill every obligation, transfer every asset, and then we leave." "Why?" Lisa Wade asked. She was young for a captain, but she had earned her position through exceptional skill. "What happened?" Tracy pulled up a holographic display showing the voting patterns in the Council over the past 10 years. The trend was clear and undeniable. We're not wanted. We're not appreciated. And the President has decided that if the Council doesn't value what we provide, then it's time to let them handle things on their own. Paul Griffin leaned forward. "Admiral, with respect, people depend on us out here. The Harmony convoy route alone has 3 billion people living along it. If we pull our patrol ships, the pirates will have a field day." "I know," Tracy said quietly. "But we can't force people to want our help, Paul. We can't make them respect us, and we can't keep giving everything while getting nothing in return. The President has made her decision. Our job now is to execute it properly." She distributed data chips to each officer. "These contain your specific orders. You'll begin the withdrawal in phases, starting with the most distant ships first. Everything has to look routine. Normal patrol rotations, standard reassignments, regular maintenance schedules. Nobody outside this room can know what's really happening until we're ready to announce it." Danny looked at his chip, then at Tracy. "This is really happening. We're actually leaving." "Yes," Tracy said. "We are. And we're going to do it the human way, with professionalism, dignity, and no drama. When we're gone, the Council won't be able to say we abandoned anyone or broke any agreement. They'll only be able to say that we left." Across Council space, other humans were receiving similar orders. Dr. Sophie Martinez was in her office on Medical Station 7 when the message arrived. She had been running the Human Medical Initiative for 8 years, overseeing dozens of field hospitals, medical ships, and emergency response teams across 15 sectors. The message was simple: begin recalling all medical personnel and equipment over the next 6 months. Cite budgetary concerns and personnel rotation. Do not inform local governments that the withdrawal is permanent. Sophie stared at the message for a long time. She thought about the Catherine colony she had visited last month, where a new hospital was being built with human funding and human expertise. She thought about the epidemic response team on standby in the Helios sector. She thought about the thousands of patients who would need help in the coming years. Then she thought about the Catherine ambassador who had voted for Resolution 447. She thought about the Helios government that had complained about human interference in local medical practices, and she thought about every species that gladly accepted human help while simultaneously pushing to Restrict human activities, Sophie. Started drafting the recall orders. On Apex Prime Station itself, Ben Crawford was having a very different conversation. He was the chief engineer for all human-maintained infrastructure on the massive station. The life support systems, the power grid, the docking facilities all had human fingerprints all over them. "You want me to do what?" Ben asked, staring at his supervisor through the video link. "Transfer everything to council oversight," Director Helen Park repeated. She was calling from Earth and she looked tired. "Every system we maintain, every automated platform we run, every piece of infrastructure we built. Document it all, create detailed operation manuals, and transfer control to council technicians." "Helen, they can't run half this stuff," Ben protested. "Most council species don't even understand the principles behind our engineering. They've always just let us handle it." "Then they'll learn," Helen said firmly. "Or they won't. Either way, it's not our problem anymore. You have 6 months, Ben. Make it happen." Ben spent the next week creating the most detailed technical documentation he had ever written. Every system, every subsystem, every backup protocol. He wrote it as clearly as he could, assuming no prior knowledge. He included troubleshooting guides, maintenance schedules, and emergency procedures. Then he started training the council technicians who would take over. Most of them were competent enough, but they had never needed to understand the full complexity of the systems because humans had always been there to handle problems. Now they looked nervous. "This is a lot of responsibility," one of them said, a Harmonite named Krell who seemed more capable than most. "Why the sudden change?" "Budget cuts," Ben lied smoothly. "Earth is reallocating resources. You'll do fine. Just follow the manuals." Back on Earth, Jake Morrison was compiling the most comprehensive report of his career. He documented every slight, every dismissed proposal, every condescending comment from the past 12 years. He tracked voting patterns, analyzed political alliances, and created a timeline of humanity's marginalization in the council. Amy helped him, working long hours in the embassy's secure facility. They were building the official record, the justification that would show the universe that Earth had not acted rashly or emotionally. The evidence was overwhelming. "We gave them everything," Amy said one evening, looking at the data. "We really did try." "I know," Jake said. He was updating his final report to the president. "And when we leave, that's what the history books will show. We tried to be partners. They chose to see us as servants." President Brennan received reports every day. The withdrawal was proceeding smoothly, ahead of schedule in most areas. Ships were coming home. Personnel were being reassigned. Infrastructure was being transferred. And remarkably, the council still had not noticed anything unusual. "How is that possible?" Vice President Greg Hamilton asked during one of their daily briefings. "We're pulling out thousands of people and hundreds of ships." "How do they not see it?" "Because they never paid attention to what we actually did," Rick Coleman explained. He seemed almost amused by the council's obliviousness. To them, humans were just background noise. They never asked where our ships were or what our people were doing. They just assumed we'd always be there. "It's actually kind of sad," Kate Morrison added. "They took us so much for granted that they can't even see us leaving." Lisa looked at the timeline displayed on her wall screen. 4 months had passed since she signed Protocol Exodus. In 2 more months, every human would be out of council space. The infrastructure would be transferred, the documentation would be complete, and Earth would officially request a council session to announce its withdrawal. Everything was going according to plan. Almost too well. "What about the independents?" she asked. "The species and colonies that aren't part of the council but rely on our trade?" Karen Phillips nodded. "We're handling them separately. Private companies will continue trading with anyone who wants to trade. We're only withdrawing from council obligations and council space. The independent systems have always been better partners anyway." Danny Hayes, now back in Sol System with his squadron, spent his time training the new crews that would defend human space exclusively. It felt strange to be focused purely on Earth's interests rather than galactic concerns, but it also felt right. He remembered the last pirate attack he had responded to 3 months. The council chamber was barely half full when Jake Morrison walked to his designated speaking position. He had expected this. Most species sent junior ambassadors to what they assumed would be another routine human complaint. The senior diplomats were probably at lunch discussing more important matters. Council Director Jatik looked down from his elevated platform with undisguised boredom. His compound eyes reflected the chamber lights. making it impossible to read any emotion. But his body language conveyed irritation at having his schedule interrupted. "Ambassador Morrison," Jothik said, his translator turning his clicks into flat words. "You have requested this emergency session. Please state your business so the council may return to its regular schedule." Jake took a breath. He had rehearsed this speech 100 times, but now that the moment was here, he felt strangely calm. After 12 years of frustration, of being dismissed and disrespected, this moment felt like release. "Council Director, esteemed ambassadors," Jake began. His voice was steady and professional, showing no anger or emotion. "I stand before you today to formally announce that humanity is exercising its charter right under Article 12 to withdraw from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The chamber went silent. A few ambassadors looked up from their data tablets. Others continued working, not quite processing what they had heard. "Earth has fulfilled all treaty obligations," Jake continued. "All jointly held assets have been transferred to Council control. All human personnel have been recalled from Council territories. All military commitments have been properly terminated. We have prepared comprehensive documentation of all systems and infrastructure previously maintained by human personnel. The withdrawal is complete, legal, and irreversible." Now he had their attention. Ambassadors were sitting up, looking at each other in confusion. A few were frantically accessing their communicators, probably trying to verify what Jake was saying. "On behalf of the people of Earth and all human colonies," Jake said, "I wish the Galactic Council well in its future endeavors. We appreciate the opportunity we were given to participate in this organization. However, it has become clear that humanity's participation is no longer mutually beneficial. We believe this decision serves the best interests of both Earth and the Council." He paused, looking around at the assembled species. Some looked shocked. Others looked confused. Most still looked merely annoyed at the interruption. "Are there any questions?" Jake asked. Jothik stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked down at his own tablet, accessing information. His mandibles clicked rapidly, which Jake had learned over the years was a sign of agitation. "This is highly irregular," Jothik finally said. "Article 12 requires 6 months' notice." "Notice was filed 6 months ago," Jake replied calmly. "You may check your records. All proper procedures have been followed to the letter." More furious checking of tablets and communicators. Jake saw the moment when they found the filing. It had been buried in routine paperwork labeled as a preliminary legal review. Nobody had paid attention because nobody ever paid attention to what humans did administratively. "But, your ships," said Ambassador Krell of the Harmonious Collective. He was one of the few senior ambassadors present. "Your medical teams. Your infrastructure personnel. Gone," Jake said simply. "All returned to human space or human colonies. As of this morning, there are no human military vessels in Council territory, no human medical facilities, no human maintenance teams. Everything has been transferred to Council authority." "This is absurd," Jothik said, his voice rising slightly. "You cannot simply leave. We have established relationships, trade agreements, defense pacts, all of which included proper termination clauses," Jake said. "We have exercised those clauses. Everything is legal. Everything is documented. You will find all relevant files in your official records as of this morning." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data chip. "This contains Earth's formal withdrawal declaration, signed by President Brennan. It also includes contact information for future diplomatic communications, should the Council wish to maintain relations with Earth as an independent entity rather than as a member state." Jake placed the chip on a small receiving platform, where it was immediately scanned and logged into the official record. The holographic displays around the chamber updated, showing Earth's status changing from active member to withdrawn. "We did try," Jake added quietly. "For 80 years we tried to be good partners. We provided military protection, medical aid, infrastructure maintenance, and humanitarian assistance. We asked for nothing more than basic respect and an equal voice in Council affairs. We received neither." Jothik's mandibles clicked rapidly. "This is emotional human thinking. You are upset about recent resolutions. This can be discussed, negotiated." "There is nothing to negotiate," Jake said. "The decision is made. Humanity is leaving. We bear no ill will toward any Council species. We simply no longer wish to participate in an organization that views us as servants rather than partners." He bowed slightly. a formal gesture of respect. I thank you for your time, Council Director. My staff and I will vacate the embassy facilities within 48 hours. Earth wishes the Galactic Council success and prosperity. Jake turned and walked toward the exit. Amy Sullivan and the rest of the small human delegation followed him. Behind them, the chamber erupted into noise as ambassadors frantically tried to understand what had just happened. Jothik's voice cut through the chaos. Ambassador Morrison, this session is not adjourned. You cannot simply leave in the middle of council proceedings. Jake stopped at the door and looked back. Council Director, with all due respect, I am no longer subject to council authority. Earth has withdrawn. I am not an ambassador anymore. I'm just a private citizen who will be going home shortly. He smiled slightly. It was not a cruel smile, just tired and perhaps a little sad. You'll be fine. You said so yourself. Our contributions were adequate but hardly irreplaceable. I'm sure you'll manage without us. Then he left. The massive doors of the council chamber closed behind him with a soft hiss. In the embassy section of Apex Prime, the remaining human staff were already packing. They had been ready for this moment for months. Personal belongings, sensitive documents, important equipment, everything was being loaded onto the last transport ships. Amy found Jake in his office, staring out the window at the vast station. How did it go? About as expected, Jake said. Shocked, confused, and trying to convince themselves it doesn't matter. Do you think they'll try to stop us? Jake shook his head. No, everything is legal. They can't claim we broke any rules. That's the beauty of Protocol Exodus. We did everything by the book. They can be angry, but they can't claim we betrayed them. Amy started packing Jake's personal items, the photos and awards collected over 12 years of service. What do you think will happen to them? Jake watched a cargo ship drift past the window. I honestly don't know. Maybe they'll be fine. Maybe all our work was unnecessary and they'll thrive without us. Or maybe, he didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what the alternative was. On Earth, President Lisa Brennan was giving a speech to a joint session of Congress. The withdrawal had been announced simultaneously with Jake's council session, and now she was explaining the decision to the human population. We did not make this choice lightly, Lisa said, her voice calm but firm. For 80 years, humanity has been a faithful member of the Galactic Council. We have given our resources, our expertise, and in many cases, the lives of our people to support the Council's mission of galactic peace and cooperation. The chamber was packed. Every representative was present along with senators, military leaders, and foreign dignitaries. The speech was being broadcast to every human world and colony. In return, we were treated as second-class citizens. Our voices were ignored. Our contributions were dismissed as adequate but unremarkable. We were systematically excluded from decision-making, while being expected to provide the bulk of the Council's operational capabilities. Lisa paused, letting that sink in. Some will say we are being too sensitive, that politics is difficult and we should be patient. To them I say we were patient. For 80 years we were patient. We tried diplomacy, negotiation, and compromise. Nothing changed. In fact, our situation only grew worse. She looked directly at the cameras. Earth does not need the Galactic Council. We have proven ourselves capable, innovative, and strong. We have colonies across dozens of systems. We have trade relationships with independent species who actually value our partnership. We have a future bright with possibilities. But, she continued, the Galactic Council needed Earth. They needed our ships, our doctors, our engineers, and our soldiers. They simply refused to acknowledge it. Now they will have the opportunity to discover whether we were truly as replaceable as they claimed. The speech continued for another 20 minutes, outlining Earth's new foreign policy and future plans. But the key message was simple. Humanity was moving on. Admiral Tracy Bennett stood on the bridge of the EDS Valiant, watching the last human transport leave Apex Prime Station. Behind it, the massive station continued its slow orbit, lights blazing, appearing unchanged. But it was changed. Fundamentally changed. 3 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, Fleet Commander Vrakos of the Vrelian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his fleet die. The battle had started 6 hours ago. His patrol fleet of 12 ships had encountered a pirate armada in the Kepler threshold. 40 pirate vessels, some small raiders but others worryingly large and well-armed. Vrakos had sent out immediate calls for assistance following standard council protocol. Nobody came. "We've lost the Defiant," his tactical officer reported, voice clicking with stress. "The Resolute is venting atmosphere. The Guardian is trying to retreat, but her engines are damaged." Brakos watched the tactical display with mandibles tight. They were losing. His fleet was designed for territorial defense and anti-piracy patrol work, not major fleet battles. They had always relied on human rapid response teams to handle situations that got out of control. "Where is the nearest council fleet?" Brakos demanded. 5 hours away, Commander. Harmonious collective ships responding to our distress call." 5 hours. In 5 hours, his fleet would be destroyed or scattered. Brakos made the only decision he could. All ships retreat, break off engagement and fall back to the rally point. It was humiliating. The Vrelian Empire, once the dominant military power in 3 sectors, fleeing from pirates. But what choice did he have? The humans who would have arrived in 30 minutes with overwhelming force were gone. The pirates let them go, content with the 3 ships they had captured and the supplies they had looted from disabled vessels. As Brakos's battered fleet limped away, he understood something that terrified him. This would happen again, and again, and again, because the Council no longer had the rapid response capability that had kept pirates suppressed for decades. That capability had been almost entirely human. On Apex Prime, the problems were getting worse. What had started as minor glitches 3 weeks ago had escalated into serious malfunctions. The automated defense platforms around the station were experiencing cascading errors. Life support in 3 sections had failed completely, requiring emergency evacuations. The main power grid was fluctuating unpredictably. Ben Crawford's manual sat on the desks of Council technicians, thousands of pages of detailed instructions. They were trying to follow them. They really were. But the manuals had been written assuming a level of baseline technical understanding that most Council species simply did not have. Humans had been working with these systems for 80 years. They understood not just what the systems did, but why they did it that way. They could improvise solutions when standard procedures did not work. They could spot potential problems before they became critical. The Council technicians were competent enough to follow instructions, but they could not improvise. They could not anticipate, and they were drowning in problems that multiplied faster than they could solve them. Chief Engineer Yalix, a Harmonite who had taken over Ben's position, stared at a diagnostic readout that made no sense. The defense platform in Sector 12 was reporting a cascade failure in its targeting system. The manual said to reset the primary processors and reinitialize the tracking software. He had done that. It had not worked. What would the humans have done? His assistant asked. Yalix did not know. The manual did not cover this specific situation. There was probably a way to solve it, some clever workaround or alternative approach, but without humans to ask, they were stuck. "Shut down the platform and flag it for maintenance," Yalix said finally. "We'll deal with it when we have more time." 1 defense platform out of 64. Not critical, except that 2 others had been shut down the previous week for different problems, and 4 more were operating at reduced capacity. The station's defensive capability was degrading slowly but steadily. On Sethisa 4, the Varaxi fever outbreak had exploded into a full crisis. What had started in 1 city had spread to 6 others. The local hospitals were overwhelmed. People were dying. The Council medical ship had finally arrived 3 days after the outbreak began. But it was a general-purpose medical vessel, not an emergency response unit. The crew did their best, but they lacked the specialized equipment and training that the Human Medical Initiative had provided. Governor Helrath of Sethis IV found himself in the impossible position of watching his people suffer while help that should have been there was gone. He contacted the Kethrin government, which contacted the Council, which sent strongly worded messages that accomplished nothing. "Can we contact Earth directly?" Helrath asked his communications director. "Ask them for help?" "I tried," the director said. Earth's diplomatic office sent a polite response. They said Earth is no longer responsible for Council medical emergencies and suggested we contact the Council Medical Authority. We did contact them. They sent 1 ship. We need 20 ships, we need specialists, we need the mobile hospitals that used to be stationed here. The director had no answer. Those mobile hospitals were gone. The humans who ran them were gone. And people were dying because of it. The outbreak was eventually contained 2 weeks after it began. The death toll was over 3,000. Before humanity's withdrawal, the Human Medical Initiative had responded to 14 similar outbreaks across Council space. None had killed more than 50 people because the humans arrived so quickly with so many resources, 3,000 deaths that would not have happened if the humans had still been there. Ambassador Krell of the Harmonious Collective sat in his office on Apex Prime and reviewed the reports that were flooding in from across Council space. As one of the more analytical species in the Council, he had been tasked with assessing the impact of Earth's withdrawal. The assessment was devastating. Humanity had provided 34% of the Council's total military capability. But that number was misleading. What they really provided was 82% of rapid response capability. When a crisis happened anywhere in Council space, it was almost always human ships that arrived first. They had handled 71% of all pirate suppression operations. Their ships were faster, better equipped for extended patrol duty, and positioned throughout Council space in a network that provided coverage everywhere. They operated 91% of medical emergency services outside of species' homeworlds. The mobile hospitals, the emergency response teams, the disaster relief operations, almost all of it had been human. Their early warning systems detected 97% of potential threats. Their communications network handled 63% of all interstellar traffic. Their engineering teams maintained systems that no one else fully understood. Krell looked at the numbers and felt something close to despair. The Council had not just lost a member species. They had lost the framework that made galactic civilization function smoothly. How did we not know? His aide asked, looking over his shoulder at the report. We knew, Krell said quietly. We just did not understand what it meant. The humans made everything look easy. They responded so quickly, solved problems so efficiently that we thought anyone could do it. We thought it was simple work, beneath the dignity of elder species. He pulled up footage from the Council session 3 weeks ago, Jake Morrison standing alone in that half-empty chamber, making his announcement, Jothik barely paying attention, dismissing Earth's contributions as adequate but replaceable. We were fools, Krell said. Council Director Jothik was coming to the same conclusion, though he was fighting against it. He had called an emergency session of the full Council, and for the first time in years, every species sent their primary ambassador. The chamber was packed. The mood was grim. The situation is manageable, Jothik insisted, his mandibles clicking defensively. We are experiencing temporary disruptions as we adjust to new operational procedures. This is to be expected during any transition. Temporary? Admiral Kren of the Vrelian military stood from his seat. Director, my fleet lost 3 ships to pirates last week. Pirates? The Vrelian Empire has not lost a ship to pirates in over a century, and it's getting worse. The pirates know we can't respond quickly anymore. They're getting bolder. The Cethys 4 outbreak killed 3,000 people, added Ambassador Thelor of the Kethran Collective. His voice was bitter. 3,000 of my people are dead because we don't have medical resources in position. The Human Medical Initiative could have saved them. We have medical resources, Jothik protested. The Council maintains fully equipped medical vessels. 6 of them, Thelor snapped. For all of Council space. The humans had 47 mobile hospitals, hundreds of emergency response teams, and supply caches positioned throughout every sector. 6 ships cannot replace that. Ambassador after ambassador stood and listed similar problems. Trade routes were becoming dangerous. Infrastructure was failing. Communications were unreliable. Emergency response times had increased from minutes to hours or even days. Small problems that would have been handled immediately were now cascading into crises. We must find solutions, Jothik said, trying to maintain authority. We are the elder species. We have wisdom and experience that spans millennia. Surely we can handle these operational challenges. Can we? It was Ambassador Krell who spoke, and his voice was quiet but clear. Director, I have prepared a detailed analysis of Earth's. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council was dying, not dramatically, not with war or invasion, but with the slow, grinding collapse of a civilization that had forgotten how much work it took to maintain itself. The numbers told the story in brutal clarity. Trade had dropped by 40%. Pirates had effectively taken control of 6 major routes. 12 colonies had been abandoned due to security concerns or medical emergencies. The automated infrastructure that humans had built, was failing at an accelerating rate. Communication delays that used to be measured in seconds now took hours. Council Director Jathic stood alone in his office on Apex Prime and watched ships arrive and depart from the massive station. There were fewer ships than there used to be. The station itself was showing signs of stress. Whole sections were operating at reduced capacity. The defense platforms were down to 30% effectiveness. Life support had failed twice in the past month. He had called for the emergency summit 3 days ago. Every species, every ambassador, every leader who could attend would be there. Not because Jathic had authority over them anymore, but because they were all desperate. The council was meeting to discuss something that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago: whether the council itself should continue to exist. Ambassador Krell found Jathic in his office before the summit began. The Harmonite had aged visibly over the past year. They all had. The stress of watching their civilization crumble had taken its toll on everyone. "The chamber is full," Krell said quietly. "Every species sent their leaders, even species that have not attended council sessions in decades. Because they are afraid," Jathic said. "As they should be. Will you resign?" The question hung in the air. Jathic had been council director for 30 years. He had presided over what he thought was a golden age of stability and prosperity. Now he presided over collapse. "If the council votes for my removal, I will step down," Jathic said. "But I suspect there are larger questions to address than my leadership. Will you propose contacting Earth?" Jathic turned to look at Krell. "What would be the point? We sent 3 delegations to Earth over the past year. All were received politely. All were told the same thing. Humanity is focusing on its own development and is not interested in rejoining the council at this time. They were very diplomatic about it. But did we offer them what they actually want?" Krell asked. "Did we acknowledge what we did wrong? Or did we just try to convince them that we need them?" Jathic did not answer. They both knew the truth. The delegations had focused on what the council needed, not on what Earth deserved. They had offered better trade terms, more committee positions, even a permanent seat on the Security Council. But they had not offered what Jake Morrison had asked for in his final speech: genuine equality and respect, because the elder species still did not really believe humanity deserved those things. The summit began an hour later. The council chamber was more packed than Jathic had ever seen it. Leaders who normally sent ambassadors had come in person. The mood was somber and fearful. "I will be direct," Jathic began after the formal opening ceremonies. "The Galactic Council is failing. Our ability to maintain security, provide medical services, and support basic infrastructure has degraded to critical levels. We face a choice: find a way to restore functionality or acknowledge that the Council can no longer fulfill its purpose." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, species speaking in dozens of languages. Jathic let them argue for several minutes before calling for order. "We all know why this is happening," said Admiral Kren of the Vrelian military. His once proud uniform looked worn now. The Vrelian Empire had lost 37 ships to pirate attacks over the past year. Earth's withdrawal removed capabilities that we cannot replace. We must convince them to return. "We have tried," countered Ambassador Thelor of the Kethrin Collective. 3 times. "They have refused. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why." "They are being prideful," someone shouted from the upper tiers, "holding a grudge over minor political disagreements." Ambassador Lyra of the Selenar Confederacy stood. She had become increasingly vocal over the past year, especially as the younger species in the council began to question everything. "Minor disagreements?" Lyra's voice was sharp. "We passed 37 resolutions restricting human activities. We excluded them from 70% of council committees. We dismissed every proposal they made. We took credit for their achievements and blamed them for any problems. And when they objected, we told them they were too young, too immature, too emotional to understand galactic politics." She looked around the chamber. "They gave us everything: ships, doctors, engineers, resources, lives. And we gave them contempt. They did not leave over minor disagreements. They left because we made it clear we did not want them as equals. We wanted them as servants." "This is not about blame," Jathic said, though his voice lacked conviction. "This is about solutions." "The solution requires understanding the problem," Lyra insisted. "And the problem is us. Our arrogance. Our assumption that age equals wisdom. Our belief that because we have been spacefaring for millennia, we are automatically superior to species who achieved the same things in centuries. She pulled up a holographic display showing comparative data. Look at this. Humanity went from their first spaceflight to faster-than-light travel in 143 years. It took my species, the Selenar, over 2,000 years. It took the Vrelians 3,000. The Harmonites 6,000. Youth and speed are not the same as wisdom, someone argued. No, Lyra agreed, but we confuse slowness with wisdom. We assumed that because we took longer to develop, our way was better. We never considered that maybe humans were just more efficient, more innovative, better at solving problems, and when they proved that they were, we resented them for it. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Lyra had spoken a truth that most species had been avoiding for a year. Ambassador Krell stood to support her. I have spent the past year analyzing Earth's contributions in detail. Not just what they did, but how they thought about problems. Humans approach challenges differently than we do. They are willing to try unconventional solutions. They adapt quickly when something does not work. They do not let tradition or established procedures prevent them from finding better ways. He displayed his own data. When humans built the defense platforms around Apex Prime, they used a hybrid system that combined technologies from 6 different species. No one had thought to do that before. When they organized the medical initiative, they created mobile hospitals that could deploy in hours instead of days. No one had considered that approach. When they designed patrol routes, they used predictive algorithms that anticipated problems before they happened. We thought it was impressive. We never realized it was revolutionary. What is your point? Jothik asked. My point is that we did not just lose human resources when Earth withdrew. We lost a way of thinking, a perspective that made us better. And we lost it because we were too proud to admit that the young species might have something to teach the old ones. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for more attempts to contact Earth. Others suggested trying to rebuild capabilities internally. A few even proposed dissolving the council entirely and starting fresh. Finally, a junior delegate from a small species called the Meridians spoke up. His name was Tellum, and he was young even by his species standards. He rarely spoke in council sessions, which made his words now more impactful. I have a question, Tellum said. If Earth agreed to return tomorrow, what would actually change? Would we give them true equality? Would we listen to their proposals? Would we stop resenting them for being better at things than we are? Or would we just be grateful for a few years until we started taking them for granted again? Nobody answered. That is what I thought, Tellum said. We want them back because we need them, not because we respect them. And they know that. Humans are not fools. They see through our diplomatic words to the truth underneath. Until we actually change, why would they return? Jothik felt something inside him crack. The young delegate was right. Everything Lyra and Krell had said was right. The council had not just made mistakes. It had revealed fundamental flaws in how it thought about other species, about competence, about worth and value. What do you propose we do? Jothik asked Tellum. I propose we stop trying to get them back, Tellum said. I propose we focus on fixing ourselves. Learn to do the things they did. Rebuild our capabilities. Change how we think about competence and contribution. Prove that we can actually function as a council of equals. And maybe if we succeed, humanity will choose to work with us again. Not because we need them, but because they see us as worthy partners. That could take years, someone protested. Decades even. We might fail completely. Yes, Tellum agreed. But what is the alternative? Keep begging a species that we disrespected for 80 years to come save us? Keep pretending that our problem is Earth's departure and not our own failures? Keep assuming that age and tradition make us superior, even as our civilization collapses around us? The chamber was silent again. It was the silence of species confronting uncomfortable truths about themselves. Jothik made a decision. I propose a formal resolution. The Galactic Council acknowledges that Earth's withdrawal